Welcome to the AccessTestAdministrationTraining2 Focus on Test Administration. This presentation is being brought to you by the Michigan Department of Education and the Office of Educational Assessment and Accountability. The purpose of this presentation is to provide a high-level review of the administration of MyAccess assessments and the unique features of the test. The agenda for this presentation will start with what is new this year, then choosing the proper assessment for students, outlining the roles of coordinators and administrators, as well as activities before, during, and after the testing. Since this is a recorded presentation, a Q&A session is not possible. However, an email address will be provided during the questions section to submit any questions. So let's get started. MDE has expanded the flexibility to more than one level of testing within MyAccess, so long as it is limited to 2 adjacent levels of MyAccess. An example might be students assessed with supported independence could participate in a functional independence test for different content areas. The manual provides further details on this change. The online functional independence test will feature artwork that is now in color instead of in black and white. This is designed to help engage students with the test items. The participation assessments now provide do not read aloud instructions for each question and sample adaptations for those students who have visual impairments. There are 2 new training tools focused on making selection decisions. One is a self-directed training series and the other is an interactive decision-making tool. Both are excellent tools for IEP teams to review and to use for making decisions for students being considered for MyAccess. A comprehensive series of training modules have been developed and posted on each of the MDE web pages designed to provide new and not so new coordinators with the training they need to prepare for testing. This year, we have no changes in the total number of items on the functional independence level of MyAccess. For ELA, accessing print, in grades 3 through 8 and 11, we have 41 items and 2 constructed response prompts for the expressing ideas portion of the test. Mathematics at all grade levels, 3 through 8 and 11, contains 34 items. The science tests have 43, 50, and 55 items in grades 4, 7, and 11 respectively. Please note that this should not be confused with the M-STEP, which will be administering science in grades 5, 8, and 11 as a field test again this year. Social Studies has 40, 42, and 52 items in grades 5, 8, and 11 respectively. The supported independence and participation levels of the assessment have not changed either. They remain 20 items for ELA and mathematics for SI and 15 items for the participation level. For science, the total for SI is 22 and 20 for participation. SR stands for Selected Response, while ABO stands for Activity-Based Observations. While Michigan does not offer a state-level social studies assessment at the SI or P levels, it is important to note that students must still be assessed using a locally determined tool, and the assessment used and the outcome should be documented in the secure site during the test verification window in June. This is the same procedure that the state has been requiring over the past several years. Unlike general assessments, the MyAccess assessments are for students whose IEP has determined that this is the most appropriate test. Let's take a closer look at how these decisions are made. It's important to have an overall understanding of who should take MyAccess and specifically which level of the MyAccess assessments they should take. MyAccess is designed for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities who are working towards alternate content standards in their daily instruction and for whom the IEP team has determined the general assessment is not appropriate even with accommodations. MyAccess has 3 levels of testing, which are the Functional Independence Assessment, the Supported Independence Assessment, and the Participation Assessment. Let's start with the Functional Independence Assessment, often referred to as FI. It is for students who have or function as if they have a significant yet more mild cognitive impairment. Students at this level have IEP instructional goals and objectives that are closely aligned to the high range of complexity when working towards the alternate content standards. Students at this level are typically aware of their personal strengths and limitations and can access resources, strategies, and supports to help them maximize their independence. It's important to note that they're not working towards the general content standards. The Supported Independence, or SI, is an observational test, and it is for students who have, or function as if they have, a significant cognitive impairment that is more moderate in nature. Students at this level require intensive individualized instruction and support. They also must have IEP instructional goals and objectives that are closely aligned to the medium range of complexity when working towards the alternate content standards. Students at this level require ongoing support in major life roles and may have multiple impairments that limit their ability to generalize or to transfer learning. The instructional approach taken is usually direct, in context, and targeted towards specific, essential, independent living and academic skills. Participation, often referred to as P, is also an observational test for students who have or function as if they have a severe cognitive impairment. Students who take this level of assessment require extensive individualized instruction and support. Students at this level have IEP instructional goals and objectives that are closely aligned to the low range of complexity when working towards the alternate content standards. These students require extensive ongoing support even into adulthood and may also have multiple impairments that interferes with their ability to generalize learning. They typically depend on others for most, if not all, of their daily living needs. The instructional approach for these students targets opportunities for them to integrate into age-appropriate tasks and activities related to daily living skills and academic content. How do I know which assessment my students should be taking? There are 3 guiding questions for IEP teams to ask. Number 1, is the student identified as eligible for special education services? If the student is not eligible for special education services, then My Access is not an option for that student. Number 2, what is the student's instruction based on? Is it based on the general content standards or the alternate content standards? Students that are working towards the alternate content standards should be taking the alternate assessment, My Access. On the other hand, students working towards the general content standards should be taking the general assessment, M-STEP, or MME for 11th graders. And finally, number 3, we often get the question, how do I know if my student has or functions as if they have a significant cognitive impairment? We have a document called Guidelines for Participation in My Access on the web page that includes factors that should and should not be considered when answering this question. Let's take a look at it. The Guidelines for Participation in My Access document may be found in the opening paragraph of the My Access web page. This document provides a simple yes-no decision flowchart diagram to take you through the selection process in each level of My Access. IEP teams may find this 2-page document helpful when deciding if a student should take My Access and at what level of testing. The second page of this document provides specific factors that should and should not be considered when making the decision to administer My Access. To complement the selection process for alternate assessments, we have added 2 selection tools this year that will assist you and your staff better determine which students will take the My Access tests. The first tool is the Assessment Selection Guidance Training, which is a self-directed presentation designed to describe each step of the decision process. The second tool is the Assessment Selection Guidance Interactive Decision-Making Tool, which is an adaptive platform allowing IEP teams to systematically make decisions by answering a series of questions that will lead to a final decision. Both tools are excellent training tools for everyone involved in the MyAccess testing decisions. Can students take both MSTEP and MyAccess in different content areas? Yes, this is not new this year and will continue unchanged. What is new this year is an expanded flexibility of the MyAccess assessments by content areas. IEP teams now have the flexibility to allow students to participate in 2 adjacent levels of MyAccess. The levels of the test must be adjacent to each other. For example, MSTEP may be combined with FI, FI may be combined with SI, and SI may be combined with P. An example of this might be a student who takes the MSTEP for mathematics and the ELA test for FI. Students may not take non-adjacent levels of the test such as FI and P or MSTEP with P or SI. If non-adjacent tests are given, the lower level will be invalidated. Note the decision to allow students to participate at different levels should be carefully discussed and noticed in the student's IEP. The content standards to which our assessment is aligned are as follows. English Language Arts and Mathematics. The assessment measures the essential elements with Michigan range of complexity. For science, we are using the extended benchmarks, although these are due to change in the next few years due to recent changes in the general academic standards. For social studies, we use the extended content expectations and the extended high school content expectations related to the FI level of social studies or functional independence. So where can you find these content standards? The Michigan Alternate Content Standards are found in the header of the MyAccess webpage. When you select the link shown in the circle, you will be directed to the standards links. These links will take you directly to the standards along with the Michigan range of complexity. Knowing the MyAccess assessment types and the standards will help facilitate the IEP team's decisions for students. Understanding your role in the assessment process is a critical part to a successful administration regardless of your level of involvement. While every district is different, there are some key roles and responsibilities that must be assigned and completed by staff. Here are some specifics. District and school professional staff members play a key role in the fair and equitable administration of state assessments. Districts may adjust the roles and responsibilities to fit their size and organizational structure, but all roles must be filled in some way. Every role fulfills a critical piece to a successful administration. There are 4 critical roles associated with the MyAccess testing: district coordinators, building coordinators, test administrators, and technology coordinators. Let's take a look at each of these. The district coordinator's primary role is to provide support and training for those involved in testing, along with other duties such as ensuring that the pre-identification of students is completed properly in the secure site, making sure that buildings have the testing materials they need and ordering materials as needed, ensuring the security compliance form and test security procedures for all staff, ensuring there is a clear process for handling test materials securely and that a chain of custody is established, and making sure the staff have access to and read the Assessment Integrity Guide on the web page. Over the past year, a training tool was developed for coordinators and posted at the top of the MyAccess web page. This module-style training is chronologically laid out to help coordinators and their staff. Be sure to make this part of your overall training sessions. District coordinators should also be assisting schools with receiving and returning test materials as needed. Districts have the choice in the secure site to have the materials delivered to the school or to the district. We have provided material return diagrams and return instructions in the manuals on the web page. Coordinators also manage the answer document and test verification process, typically open in June. This is the last chance to make sure all students are tested and demographics updated properly. If there are any testing irregularities related to testing, the coordinator is responsible for submitting a report in the secure site. The reports are processed, and you'll receive a reply from our staff. Review and distribute final reports will be coming out in the late summer on the OEAA secure site. Now we move on to the school coordinator. The school coordinator helps manage the testing activities within the school building and works with the district coordinator. They must participate and help in the assessment training at that school. They assist with receiving and returning test materials as needed. They have the responsibility for implementation of test security procedures in the school, including monitoring the chain of custody of secure materials in the building. Also, they're responsible for the implementation of security procedures in the school. Review and distribute final reports will be coming out in the late summer on the OEAA secure site. The assessment coordinator training is also available on the MyAccess webpage for school coordinators. This module-style training will help train coordinators and staff. Be sure to make this part of your overall training sessions. Assessment administrators fulfill a very important role as the frontline administrator of the assessments and interact with students who are testing. Let's start off with the Functional Independence Assessment Administrator. This is primarily a one-on-one assessment between student and administrator. The assessment administrator should be familiar to the student. Administrators need to be a certified professional staff member such as a teacher, school psychologist, related service provider, or teacher consultant. They will assist in getting the student started in the booklet or logging into the test if testing online. Administrators monitor and keep students focused on the test at every step and help to minimize any distractions. For those students testing using paper and pencil, the administrator must transfer the student responses from the booklet to the answer document. For the online assessment, they will also assist the student with the testing environment as needed. There may be opportunities where the administrator takes over some of the technology for the student if needed to keep them focused and on task. We ask that the administrators log in for the student as well and help the student submit and log out of the test. After all testing is complete, administrators return all testing materials to your coordinator for return to the vendor. Please see the manual for complete return instructions. Now for the Participation and Supported Independence or P&SI administrators. The P&SI assessments are observational assessments and rely on 2 administrators. The test questions are activity-based as well as selected response items. The assessment administrator should be very familiar with the student and the student should be familiar with them. The 2 staff members are the primary, or PAA, and the shadow, or the SAA, assessment administrators. The PAA is the lead administrator during the observations and when they present the test items to the student. PAAs set up the test in advance because these tests should be instructionally embedded, so the student really has no idea that this is a test but rather part of their daily routine. The PAA leads the administration and marks the student responses on their scoring document. The SAA's job is to observe student responses and record them on the scoring documents. The SAA can be another certified staff member or other staff member very familiar to the student, such as a highly qualified paraprofessional. The PAA and SAA score the student responses on each one of the items simultaneously and independently during the testing. Your scores may not always agree, and that's okay. That's part of your observation of the student and how they respond to an item. The PAA will take both scoring documents and enter the scores in an online answer document. I'll expand on that in just a little bit. Online testing for FI requires technology support for computer setup for students taking online testing. The technology coordinators should be familiar with all the software to support the online testing, be available for setup or questions regarding Insight, which is a secure system for testing, Be familiar with the back-end software that supports caching and the test site manager and other technology. Be familiar with the process for entering P and SI scores, which are entered using a browser and not InSight. And become familiar with the section of the Assessment Coordinator training titled Introduction to Testing Technology found on the web page. The overall validity of the test relies on the security of all the tests. For that reason, we ask that all staff involved in any aspect of testing read the Assessment Integrity Guide found on the MyAccess web page and sign a security compliance form. The compliance forms are shipped with the testing materials and are also posted on the web page. These forms should be signed and retained in the district for 3 years. They should not be returned with the testing materials. A security training series through Michigan Virtual is available to help staff members understand the basics of test security and how important this is to all assessment activities. These modules are an excellent addition to any staff training or professional development series for your school or district. The web page also provides a great deal of information and guidance to help with administration that is very helpful, so become familiar with the various items. It has several sections in it, from What's New all the way down to a parent-student section and also general information. There is a great deal of preparation leading up to the MyAccess administration. The next section will help prepare staff for the administration. Let's review some of the major parts to getting ready. There are a variety of activities leading up to an administration, and a complete source to help manage the process can be found in the manuals. There are 2 test administration manuals, or TAMs. One TAM is for the functional independence, and the other TAM covers the P and SI tests. The TAMs are designed to cover the unique features of the online testing and the paper versions which are present in all areas of the MyAccess assessments. The TAMs are also divided into differing roles for ease of reference and training. The TAMs are available on the web page for downloading and sharing with staff. Printed versions are not provided by the MDE. The TAM provides general information, which gives overall information about testing, an overview, which gives a description of the assessment components, supports and accommodations, which give details of student supports that are available, and are divided into roles for ease of reference. Testing activities listed in before, during, and after are throughout the TAM to reflect sequences of testing. The material return section provides details for packing and shipping materials back after testing. The TAMs provide the reminder that the deadline to return materials is June 4th, 2019. And the TAMs also provide appendices which contain flowcharts and sample information along with the training resources. The MDE expects the district coordinator and the school coordinator should read the entire TAM, and the assessments administrators should read the section specific to their roles and be familiar with it. Let's take a closer look at preparing for the assessments, and we'll start with the FI administration overview. FI offers 2 modes of testing, online and paper and pencil. For the online testing, last year over 80% of students taking the FI assessment tested online. Specifically, the student interacts directly with that online platform and the technology. They read the question and answer online by making an answer choice. For the online assessment, there are 2 parts for each assessment for each subject area. Students need to take both parts of the assessment, which means there will be 2 test tickets per subject area. For paper and pencil, with a paper test, the students interact directly with that test booklet and circle their responses in the test booklet, not the answer document. The assessment administrator will be the one to transfer those answers onto the paper answer document. The paper and pencil version has several sections depending on the subject being assessed. You can pause the assessments and come back to it later in either testing mode. It is also important to note the student should not sit down and complete all parts of a subject area back-to-back in a single day. Administrators also have the flexibility to break the administration down into more than one session and into parts as often as needed. The assessment administration flowchart is designed for the FI testing from start to finish. This provides a visual layout of how the administration process works for both paper and online. The two columns provide the paper process on the left and the online student-facing testing process on the right. The chart also captures the Expressing Ideas assessment that is paper and pencil only, and visually explains how online testers are required to take the paper version and return with all other testing materials. This flowchart can be found on the MyAccess webpage and in the FI manual. The PNSI version of this chart is also available. There is one exception to this mode of FI testing, expressing ideas mentioned in the previous slide. This is the constructed response portion of the ELA assessment. Based on your student enrollment in FI testing, materials were shipped to your school. Expressing ideas is required for all students and is only offered as a paper and pencil test. Students should respond to both prompts by writing, drawing, or a combination of both. If your students are using a scribe or other accommodations for the Expressing Ideas part of the assessment, please refer to the Supports and Accommodations table and manual to ensure that those supports are being administered according to proper guidelines. Those guidelines can be found on the MyAccess website under the Supports and Accommodations section. As an FI administrator, what do I need to do before the assessment begins? First, determine which staff member has access to eDirect. How will student test tickets be disseminated to test coordinators? In most cases, it will be your school coordinator or maybe your district coordinator who will set up the sessions in eDirect and print the tickets for you. It is important to know that these individuals know which supports and accommodations your students require so that they may be put into eDirect prior to printing test tickets. Make sure online students have access to training leading up to the test. There are online tools training or OTTs that may be accessed through eDirect, and an OTT guide can be found on the MyAccess webpage in the Professional Development section. The OTT gives students the ability to interact with the test engine, become familiar with the assessment tools, and then take some practice items that will give them practical experience in taking an online assessment. Make sure the testing environment for the student is considered when scheduling testing by remembering the online assessments have two parts and may be given in any order. 2 test tickets are required. It doesn't matter which part is given first. Remember that breaks are encouraged based on student need. Administrators would simply pause and exit the test, and there will be an example of that here in a moment. Remember that the ELA Expressing Ideas assessment is provided in paper and pencil mode for all students, even those testing online for other parts of the test. Know what assessments and accommodations and supports are required for the student and ensure that those are listed on the test ticket. Administrators that are scribes for paper or online navigation must understand the protocol found in the guidance document located on the MyAccess webpage. Can you access the online tools training without the Insight software so students can use them now? Yes. You could access them now at the web address being shown on your screen using the Chrome browser. That will bring you to the login screen for the online tools training program. The login and password are displayed on the login screen, allowing users to access that program. This program can also be accessed through the Insight Test Engine software. If you have the Insight software installed, you can go directly into the test engine and click the link for the online tools training program. Now let's move into the actual administration part of the testing. As an assessment coordinator and administrator for the P and SI level assessments, there are several things to remember before testing. Work closely with your coordinator to ensure that your students have been pre-ID'd in the OEAA Secure site for the assessment that is listed in their IEP. Coordinators must confirm sessions in eDirect and print test tickets for entering scores in the online answer document after testing. Administrators must meet to schedule the testing and develop a plan for the assessments, such as the assessments have selected response and activity-based observation items which are designed to be embedded into the student's daily instruction. This will require planning to review the test and know the student's needs in advance of the testing. The testing window is 8 weeks for 2019 only. The scoring rubric is the guide to scoring students, and both the Primary Assessment Administrator, or the PAA, and the Shadow Assessment Administrator, or the SAA, must be very familiar with how to use the rubric. Set up a time to meet and discuss the rubric and how you both will apply it to your observations. Both the PAA and SAA score the items based upon the student's response to the prompt using the scoring documents provided for each assessment. This is an overview of the scoring rubrics for both the participation and supported independence tests. This chart should be reviewed by both the PAA and the SAA as part of the training and planning for the P and SI assessments. The more familiar you are with this rubric, the easier it is to recognize responses from the students during their observations. Note that this rubric also appears on the scoring documents that are used during test observations for convenience. A training module is provided for the proper use of the rubric during administration. The module link for the PNSI training modules can be found under the Professional Development section of the MyAccess webpage. This is a great video series of classroom interactions between administrators and students during testing. Even though there is an 8-week window for testing, just for 2019, there are a number of things that must take place during that time. Now let's take a look at what to expect during test administration. Let's get started with the FI online testing. The first step is, once you have established where the students will be testing, what computers they will use, and you have taken all the security precautions necessary, you're going to want to log the students into the assessment using the student's test ticket. We're asking that you do this rather than the students to avoid confusion and cut down on any distractions. So, use the student's test ticket to enter the student's username and password and then sign in. Once you've logged in, it should say the following tests have been scheduled for the student's name will appear, and then a section of the tests associated with that test ticket will be shown on the screen with an underline. That's the link to get the test started. So, simply select the link to start the test for the student. The next screen is the 3-circle screen, which is an assessment confirmation screen. From this point on, the student may interact directly with the test, either independently or with the administrator's support as needed to engage with the assessment. The command buttons below the window will provide navigation throughout the remainder of the test. Once they click the next button, they're going to enter the first part of the assessment, which is a review of the tools required to take the assessment, such as the pointer tool, the highlighter, the magnifier, and the calculator for the math assessments, and so on. Please note this is just the review. This is not an in-depth instruction on how to use each of the tools. For the in-depth instruction on how to use each tool, please rely on the Online Tools Training Program. The text-to-speech feature will begin to read the assessment with a highlighting follow-along feature. If this is distracting for the student, the audio can be turned down or off, and the follow-along can be turned off by clicking on the Options button at the bottom of the screen. Audio settings allow students and administrators control of this feature. Please note, be sure the volume is on for the 2 listening items at the start of Part 2 of the online ELA assessment. Once the student is through all the instructions section, they will come to a screen that has the green Begin the Test button at the bottom of the screen, and the test directions will begin reading. Once they click on that button, they will come to their first item on the test. For the ELA test, there are different sections. They are vocabulary, using language, research inquiry, listening, and understanding text. Those different sections each have different directions, so it's important that the students do go through the directions before they continue to the next item. New this year in the display of the online tests is that some items will appear in color. Color is replacing the old line art in black and white. If you're taking a break, do not submit the test. Select pause and then resume within the 20-minute timer. If you want to take a longer break, select pause and exit the test. This will save the students' responses and allow you to return to the test at a later time. You may resume testing by using the test ticket to log in. OEA encourages administrators to be aware of the student and take breaks as needed. When the student is done, they will be prompted to raise their hand at this review screen. This is where the assessment administrator will review the items to see if the student has answered all the items. If there is an item that has been flagged or left unanswered, you can click on the item or the row to take the student back and ask, "Are you finished with this question?" Do not give a prompt to complete the item, just raise awareness with the student. Once the test is finished and you're ready to submit the test, click the End Test button at the bottom of that review screen page. Once the End Test button is selected, you'll be prompted to submit or return to the test with the message that you see on the screen. If you're ready to submit the student's test, click the Submit button. There are a variety of resources that are available on the eDirect site for Michigan assessments. They may be found at the link on this screen. You do not have to have a login to access the resources that we're going to talk about here. Once you're on the eDirect page, click on All Applications and then click on General Information link. This will provide access to documents or the Test Tutorials tab. Under the Documents tab, you will see a variety of different resources that are helpful to your technology coordinator and to your school coordinators. You can also use the Test Tutorials tab on that same page to access a tutorial available for students. It's strongly recommended that you take students through this video tutorial as it walks them through the testing software. Students should first view the tutorial and then participate in a hands-on practice with the online training tools, or the OTTs. Once you select the tutorials, you will see there are 5 different modules available. The modules are to be used with your student, covering Welcome to the Online Tutorial, Taking the Practice Test, Taking the Real Test, Navigating the Test, and finally pausing, editing, and ending the test. The modules demonstrate how the testing environment works from start to finish. Here's a sample item that you may find in the OTTs designed to help students become familiar with the functionality and navigational tools. Now let's shift topics over to the PNSI administration tests. We're going to switch gears a little bit now and talk about the administration of supported independence and participation levels of the assessment. Unlike other tests, the P or SI test booklets are not for students. The PAA and the SAA use the booklets to plan their presentation of test items to the students based on their needs. There are 2 types of questions for the P and SI assessments. One is a selected response format in which the student will be presented with picture cards or objects to answer the question. We encourage administrators to utilize classroom items during testing that the students are familiar with due to daily routine use. The assessments also have activity-based observation items. These are items in which the students are asked to respond to specific scenarios. The assessment administrator will ask a question, and the student is scored based upon the response. Both types of assessment items are intended to be instructionally embedded into the school day, which requires you to look at those assessment booklets for planning purposes. In a similar fashion to the FI flowchart, The P and SI Assessment Administration flowchart provides a quick overview of the testing processes. The chart provides a visual layout of how the administration process works for both paper and online answer document score entry after testing. The chart is divided left and right, with a paper process on the left and the online score entry process listed on the right. With a quick review, you can see the unique features of the entire assessment process that administrators will be using from beginning to end. The flowchart can be found in the manuals and on the MyAccess webpage. Here is an example of what administrators might see in the Assessment Administrator booklet. You will see the question and the two answer choices, and also the scoring focus. The scoring focus relates directly to the alternate content standards that are being measured, in this case comparing lengths and describing them as either longer, longest, shorter, or shortest. In this case, we're asking the question, which is longer? New for 2019, the participation assessments will include instructions with each question. The instructions will provide concise information about each item itself and how to present it to the student. This includes read-aloud instructions for each item. It will outline which parts of an item may not be read to the student. There are samples of items adaptation for students with visual impairments. Often, students at this level may have complicating physical limitations in their ability to see items clearly. These samples may provide helpful ideas on how to adapt classroom items into the testing environment to help students engage with the items. Take a few moments to review these instructions during your planning for the test and make sure it aligns with each of the scoring foci. The selected response items will be presented to the student with picture cards that come with the test materials. They are presented to the student twice and in a different order. The OEAA recommends telling students beforehand about presenting twice so as to not confuse them. Supported independence will also have 3 pictures and will require presenting pictures twice in a different order as well. Present the student with the picture cards while asking the question. They should indicate what they believe is the correct answer by pointing to it. The pictures are presented initially while the student responds. The pictures are then shuffled and the question is asked a second time. It's important to present them in a different order to account for possible dominant side bias or guessing. Follow the rubric on the scoring documents. The student must select correctly both times the items are presented to be counted as correct. The activity-based observation items have 2 sections. The first section is called Activity. This indicates what you're asking the student to do and gives some helpful examples on how to adapt the activity. You can customize that example or what you do with the student to best fit the instructional context and what that student is most familiar with during their instructional day. The second part of the assessment item is a scoring focus. So if you're not sure how to modify it, look at the scoring focus. If what you're doing meets that scoring focus, then you're focused on the right thing. The student directions at the beginning are a reminder to administrators to give students directions that best mimic their daily instructional experience. So how do you keep track of all the student scores or report these scores? This is accomplished using the scoring documents to track the student's scores, then entering them in the online answer document. The form number must be completed at the top of the scoring document and should be taken directly from the assessment booklet cover. The scoring documents contain the link to the online answer document where the PAA will enter these scores after testing. The scoring rubric appears in the header, so it can be referenced when you're observing the student. There are no paper answer documents. The primary and shadow administrators don't coordinate their responses. They respond to what they see and mark it down on the scoring documents. The scoring documents arrive with the testing materials and are also posted on the web page to download and print as needed. After testing is completed, the PAA will gather the scoring documents for both the PAA and the SAA, Obtain the testing ticket, which is shown on the left side of the screen. Log into the link to get into the answer document using the test ticket. There will be a login page that opens. You can see the red double arrows that calls for the username, password, test type to be entered at that point, and the online answer document will open. A confirmation window will open to verify the student information. Finally, click the Continue button. First, enter the form number from the drop-down at the top of the online answer document. Be sure to match the form number from the booklet used for this student. If you try to submit without a form number selected, you will receive a reminder to select it. The online answer documents display in a stacked format with the primary administrator's answer document at the top in blue for participation. The shadow administrator answer document appears in the lower window shaded in gray. Both windows use a scrolling feature with a rubric header frozen for ease of reference at the top of each window. The Supported Independence online answer document is laid out in the same format with a different color, green, and it is designed to enter the SI scores from the test observation based on the unique rubric for the SI assessments. It has the same functionality as the participation answer document. Once all the scores are entered, you may submit them. The online answer document is designed to alert you if some entries or form numbers are missing and provides a warning message. The online answer document is accessible with a simple internet connection. One practical means of entering the scores is by using an iPad or touchscreen device and a stylus. This allows for quick and precise entry of scores into the online answer document. Where can you learn more? eDirect provides training documents for how to get in and enter these scores in the online answer document. After accessing through this link, go to All Applications, General Information, Document tabs, and then you can filter as needed. You can view the tutorial of the mini modules and how to enter the scores as mentioned. It's important to note the administrators may help with the tests, but not on the test items. This is for paper and pencil as well as for the online test. We don't want the technology to be a distraction for the student. For that reason, the administrator may not provide hints or critical questioning about an item. Read the manuals on the web page. These are designed to assist with each phase of the administration. For the P and SI score entries, be sure to use the form number found in the administrator booklet versus the online roster that accompanies the test tickets. The Accountable Students and Answer Document Verification process will open in June. Please monitor the Spotlight newsletter for the exact date. This is your last opportunity to ensure MDE has received all paper and pencil and online answer documents. Test coordinators should also verify all students taking a MyAccess assessment have been enrolled in the correct grade. Preliminary score reports are provided to schools and districts within 48 hours of an online test submission through the dynamic score reporting site, which is accessed through the OEAA secure site. Now, in wrapping this up, there are some administrative tips I'd like to leave with you. And these may seem somewhat simple, but they're quite important and have some real consequences if not handled properly. Students must be enrolled in special ed in MSDS. This is a flag that's set designating the student as special ed. If it's not marked, the scores for the student will be invalidated for any MyAccess test taken. Remember, the Expressing Ideas part of the FI ELA test is required for all ELA students regardless of the mode of testing. Initial material orders included the paper Expressing Ideas portion of the ELA test for all students pre-ID'd to an FI ELA test. The FI answer documents for the paper and pencil testers are to be completed by the test administrator. Students record their answers in the test booklet, and the test administrator then transcribes the student responses onto the paper answer document. The exception is the Expressing Ideas writing and drawing portion of the answer document. All students will respond to these items directly in the answer document. Accommodations that are listed in the IEP that are going to be used during testing should not be foreign to the students. They should be part of their routine daily instruction. We don't want to introduce something brand new to them in the testing environment which could cause distractions. Finally, the number 2 pencil is very important from the standpoint of scanning. Scanning machinery work most efficiently with the graphite found in the number 2 pencil. So it may be tempting to use something different, but the number 2 pencil is what is required as part of the minimum requirements for reading entries to the answer document. When testing has been completed, there are a number of activities that are required. Often some schools and districts may overlook a few critical items when wrapping up testing, so we'll cover some key points to remember. The final process of the administration is packing and shipping material back for scoring. This includes all secure testing materials. The manuals provide a chapter on the materials that must be returned and those items that must be retained or securely destroyed. Included in the TAM is a packing diagram shown here that provides a quick reference on how to pack and ship your material returns. Please take the time to review this chart and the material return section if you're a coordinator. Note that the final date for material return shipping is June 4th, 2019. Another feature of the TAM is a chart that describes how materials should be processed. Some materials may be destroyed, like unused answer documents and test tickets along with rosters. Schools need to retain the PNSA scoring documents and the security compliance forms for at least 3 years. All other materials associated with testing must be returned for processing. See the chart for details or the TAM material returns section. There will always be some questions that arise, and for that reason we have a couple of avenues for you to ask and get answers. Your question may be sent to mde-oeaa@michigan.gov, or you can call 877-560-8378. Please make sure in the subject line that you put a brief description so that we can get the question routed properly. Thank you for your commitment to the children of Michigan and your help in administering the My Access assessments. Thanks for watching.